the beginning of time, the story of humanity has been written in the soil, the stars, and the strength of people who dared to live with purpose. Among these people stands a group with a legacy so rich, so powerful, that the world has often tried to bury it. But no matter how deep truth is hidden, it always rises again. Black people were not just present in history, they were chosen by God to play a special role in the unfolding of His divine plan. This truth has been ignored, rewritten, or erased, but it cannot be denied any longer. The fingerprints of greatness, purpose, and divine selection are all over the story of black people, not just in recent history, but in the foundations of civilization itself. Look at the land of Africa. This isn't just a continent, it's the birthplace of humanity. It's where knowledge blossomed before modern textbooks were even written. It's where mathematics, astronomy, architecture, and governance found their roots. The pyramids of Egypt still stand today as a testimony of divine intelligence gifted to man. And who built them? Not aliens, not myths, but black hands guided by divine wisdom. These builders were not only physically strong, they were spiritually connected. They knew they were part of something greater. These people weren't wandering souls. They were chosen for revelation, chosen for innovation, and chosen for legacy. When we speak of chosen people, we often limit the conversation to names written in translated scriptures, forgetting that those same stories were born in lands where the people had skin kissed by the sun. Before foreign tongues gave them labels, they were kings, queens, warriors, prophets, and teachers. These weren't just characters in stories. They were real people who moved according to a divine rhythm. You cannot trace the spiritual roots of the world without encountering the black race. From Ethiopia to Egypt, from Nubia to Cush, these were not just places, they were epicenters of divine purpose. The people who walked those lands were walking in alignment with the will of God. They weren't random, they were selected. To be chosen doesn't mean life will be easy. In fact, the opposite is often true. Being chosen means carrying a heavier weight. It means enduring what others couldn't survive. Black people have endured centuries of slavery, colonization, segregation, and systemic oppression. But here's what the world failed to understand. What they thought would break the chosen only made them stronger. When you are chosen, trials don't define you, they refine you. Through the fires of suffering, the black community developed resilience that couldn't be taught in schools or passed down in books. It had to be lived, it had to be earned, and it was. You see, God doesn't choose people because they're perfect. He chooses people who can endure, people who can carry purpose through the storms of life. Black people have survived being stolen from their lands, stripped of their names, robbed of their languages, and yet still they rise. They rise with vision. They rise with grace. They rise with purpose, because within them lies a truth that no chain can contain. The world can try to label you as inferior, but chosen people don't need validation from the world. Their identity comes from the one who made them. When you look at the impact black people have had on this world, even in the face of unimaginable hardship, it becomes clearer that this is not just a people group, it is a miracle. From the soul-stirring music that has carried pain and praise through generations, to the inventions that changed the way the world functions, to the leaders who rose up in times of chaos to speak truth, this is not coincidence, this is calling. Black excellence is not accidental, it is ancestral. It was planted in them long before the world ever noticed their shine. That is what happens when you are chosen. You carry light even in darkness. And yet the world has tried time and time again to cover that light. Through media, through education systems, through politics and policies, the narrative has been twisted. But no matter how much darkness tries to cover it, truth cannot be silenced. Black youth today are waking up to their identity, not just cultural but spiritual. They are realizing that the power running through their veins isn't just from history books, it's from heaven. They were created with intention. Their skin, their strength, their creativity, their vision, it's all divine design. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of, because God doesn't make mistakes. And He doesn't choose people without a purpose. This world will try to confuse you, try to make you forget who you are. But if you come from a people who were chosen, you must walk like it, think like it, live like it. Don't accept the labels given to you by systems that were never built for you. Accept the identity given to you by the Creator who built you. You come from a legacy of greatness. You come from builders, warriors, poets, leaders. You come from spiritual depth. This isn't about ego, it's about purpose. It's about understanding that being chosen means you don't live like everyone else. You don't quit when it gets hard. You don't bow down when the pressure comes. You rise because your ancestors rose, and their strength lives in you. For centuries, the chosen people have been told to wait their turn, to stay silent, to be grateful for scraps. But the time for silence is over. It's time to reclaim your role in the story. The world doesn't move without the heartbeat of Black culture, Black power, and Black purpose. And the world is slowly realizing that what was once overlooked was actually the cornerstone. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. That is the story of the chosen. Some people wonder how a group of people could go through so much and still be so strong, still be so joyful, still create beauty from ashes. The answer is simple. They were never alone. When God chooses you, He doesn't abandon you. He walks with you through every storm. He whispers to your soul when the world tries to drown you in lies. He gives you vision when others try to blind you. He gives you dreams that refuse to die. And even when generations pass, His promises remain. The strength seen in Black communities isn't man-made. It's God-given. It's chosen strength. So don't ever let anyone tell you your story started with chains. Your story started with crowns. Your story started in lands filled with gold, wisdom, and spirituality. Your story started with purpose, with selection, with divine favor. And that favor still rests on you today. Don't look at your struggles and think you are cursed. Look at your survival and know you are chosen. Look at your creativity, your leadership, your endurance, and know this wasn't given by accident. It's part of a much bigger plan. It's time to rise above the noise, above the confusion, above the stereotypes. It's time to walk boldly in the truth. You were chosen not just to survive, but to lead, to inspire, to transform. The world is watching, and whether they admit it or not, they are learning from you. Every step you take in confidence, you are teaching someone else to stand. Every word you speak in power, you are awakening someone else's purpose. That's what chosen people do. They don't just live, they ignite life in others. So if you're Black and you're wondering why your path has been so difficult, why the pressure has been so intense, understand this: diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is refined in fire, and chosen people are prepared through trials. But when you come out, you shine in a way that can't be explained. You shine with a light that comes from above. You were not meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. You were not meant to follow. You were meant to lead. You were not meant to be forgotten. You were meant to be remembered. Now is the time to remember who you are, not just for yourself, but for the generations watching you. The children growing up today need to know they come from excellence. They need to see that they don't have to become something. They already are something. They need to hear the truth that was kept from their grandparents, hidden from their parents, but must be revealed to them. They are not accidents. They are not problems. They are not statistics. They are chosen. And to those who have forgotten, let this be your reminder. You are a part of a story bigger than slavery, bigger than oppression, bigger than any label society tried to give you. You are part of a divine narrative that began long before colonization and will continue long after injustice ends. You were chosen by God not to be silent, not to be afraid, but to be strong, wise, loving, and bold. You were chosen to break cycles. You were chosen to restore families. You were chosen to create futures. You were chosen to rise. So rise, with your head high, with your heart open, with your purpose clear. You come from chosen people. You are the evidence that God still moves, that purpose still lives, that the truth, no matter how long it's buried, always finds its way back to the surface. You are chosen, and the world is about to witness exactly what that means. Black people were never an afterthought in the grand narrative of humanity. They have always been central to the divine blueprint. Before the world learned how to write history, before modern civilizations began recording their achievements, there was a people already walking in purpose, already shaping the earth, already aligned with a greater spiritual order. They were not wandering through life hoping to be noticed. They were created to lead, to build, to enlighten, and to inspire. Their existence wasn't by accident, and their greatness wasn't a surprise. From the earliest days of humanity's story, black people were placed at the core of it, not on the edges, not in the shadows, but at the center. Africa, the birthplace of mankind, holds more than just physical land. It holds divine secrets, spiritual wisdom, and cultural foundations that the rest of the world later borrowed from. The soil of that land nurtured more than crops. It nurtured visionaries. It raised minds that could calculate the stars, construct impossible architecture, and govern people with fairness and depth. But beyond the intellect and innovation, there was a spiritual awareness rooted deep in the culture, a sense that life was bigger than survival, that people had a divine connection to the universe and to each other. That connection wasn't introduced by colonizers. It existed long before they ever arrived. It was born in the rhythm of the drums, in the sacred dances, in the oral traditions that passed down truth from one generation to the next. To understand the spiritual identity of black people, you have to strip away the false history that was taught to dim their light. You have to look beyond slavery, beyond oppression, and beyond the labels given by systems that feared their power. You have to look at who they were before the chains. Before they were called slaves, they were kings. Before they were displaced, they were settled. Before they were stripped of their language, they spoke with divine authority. The world may have rebranded them, but heaven never did. Their identity was never lost. It was only hidden. But what's hidden for a time must eventually be revealed. And today we are witnessing that revelation. Black identity is rooted in purpose. There's a reason why their music carries unmatched soul, why their art moves people to tears, why their presence shifts atmospheres. There's something divine about them. It's not ego, it's essence. The strength to survive centuries of torment and still smile, still create, still love, is not a human ability alone. It is the mark of a people touched by something greater. It is spiritual endurance. It is sacred resilience. It is divine energy that cannot be destroyed, only suppressed, and even then only for a time. Even the way black people express themselves holds spiritual depth. Their language, even when altered through oppression, still sings. Their movement, even when burdened, still flows with grace. Their minds, even when denied education, still discover and innovate. This is not just cultural richness, it's divine inheritance. Something deeper than words, deeper than history books, deeper than the narrative others tried to impose. It is something born of the Creator, and it continues to echo through every generation. When you begin to understand this, it changes the way you view black people. You no longer see them as survivors, you see them as chosen. You see their history not as one of despair, but as one of transformation. You begin to recognize that even in the darkest chapters of their story, there was light burning within them. And no matter how much effort has gone into burying that light, it keeps shining. It keeps calling. It keeps reminding the world of a truth that can no longer be silenced. This is not about division. It's about restoration, restoring the truth of who black people have always been, restoring the knowledge that their spiritual and cultural identity was not given to them by colonizers. It was given to them by God. And when you carry something from God, no one can take it from you. They can try to distract you from it. They can try to make you ashamed of it, but they can't erase it, because what is divine cannot be destroyed. It may be forgotten, but it will never be gone. Black people have a spiritual legacy that the world still doesn't fully understand. But now is the time to rediscover it. Now is the time to reclaim it, not with arrogance, but with awareness. Not to look down on others, but to finally stand tall within themselves. To walk into rooms knowing they carry history, power, and purpose. To raise their children with pride, not in arrogance, but in sacred identity. Because when you know where you come from, you no longer need the world's validation. You walk in truth. You live with clarity. You move with vision. And this truth must be taught not only to black children, but to the world. Because this truth doesn't diminish others. It elevates all of humanity. When black people rise in their truth, everyone rises with them. Because a world that honors its original builders becomes a world that heals. A world that restores what was taken becomes a world where everyone can thrive. But that restoration starts with remembrance, with reclaiming spiritual identity, with understanding that being chosen isn't just about survival, it's about divine design. Black people were always part of that design. Their origin wasn't in chains, and their future isn't in shame. Their legacy was not built by the hands of others. It was born in them by the hands of God. And no matter what the world says, that will always be the truth. Being chosen by God has never meant a life free of difficulty. In fact, history has shown us again and again that those who are chosen often carry the heaviest burdens. They are the ones who walk through fire, not because they are forgotten, but because they are forged. They are not punished by struggle, they are prepared by it. And when we look at the journey of black people across centuries, across continents, and across systems built to break them, we are not looking at weakness. We are witnessing divine strength. We are seeing a calling that has been tested in every imaginable way, and yet that calling still stands. It still breathes. It still fights. That is not coincidence. That is the mark of those who were chosen for something greater. The suffering endured by black people is not a symbol of divine neglect. It is a symbol of spiritual assignment. Throughout time, those with a deeper purpose have always had to walk roads others could not survive. They have always had to push through storms that would drown most. The hardships faced by black people, from the brutal chains of slavery to the erasure of culture to centuries of oppression and discrimination, were not signs of defeat. They were trials designed to awaken the power within. Because when you are chosen, life doesn't protect you from pain. It calls you to transform pain into power. It demands you stand when others expect you to fall. It calls you to rise in places where you were never meant to rise. And time after time, that's exactly what black people have done. They were taken from their homelands, stripped of their names, separated from their families, and made to feel less than human. But even under that crushing weight, their spirit refused to die. They found ways to sing in the dark. They found ways to dance in sorrow. They found ways to believe, even when belief itself was outlawed. That is not just resilience. That is a divine fire. That is the evidence of a people who were not only chosen, but anointed to endure, to overcome, and to rebuild from nothing. The trials did not erase their worth. The trials confirmed it, because only those with a powerful purpose are sent through such deep waters and come out still able to swim, still able to shine. Being chosen means carrying something sacred through a world that doesn't always recognize its value. It means being a vessel for transformation, even when others can't see what you're holding. Black people have held strength when they were expected to break. They have held wisdom when they were denied education. They have held vision when the world tried to blind them. And all of this wasn't just for survival, it was for legacy. Every trial sharpened their insight. Every struggle refined their gifts. Every obstacle shaped their voice. And now that voice echoes louder than ever, not in anger but in truth. A truth that the world can no longer silence. The endurance of black people is not ordinary. It's prophetic. It speaks to a spiritual assignment that has been in motion for generations. The suffering was never the full story. It was a chapter in a larger book. It was the pressure that formed the diamond. It was the fire that purified the gold. It was the soil that protected the seed until it was time to bloom. And now that seed is breaking through the surface, not to seek approval, but to fulfill its divine potential. The pain endured has become the platform for greatness. The rejection faced has become the fuel for rising. The very systems built to crush black people have only proven how powerful they truly are. There is something sacred about surviving what was meant to destroy you. Something holy about rising where others expected your story to end. And that is what chosen people do. They don't just survive, they transform. They don't just endure, they lead. They don't just suffer in silence, They emerge with a sound that wakes the world. Every scar is a story. Every tear is a testimony. Every setback is a setup for something greater. And this greatness isn't just personal, it's generational. It's the kind of greatness that moves through bloodlines, through communities, through movements. It's the kind of greatness that inspires the world, even when the world pretends not to see it. Black excellence in science, art, governance, and spirituality was never an accident. It did not happen randomly, nor did it appear simply because history turned in their favor. It was built into them from the beginning. This excellence was not learned from outsiders or gifted by colonial intervention. It was there long before borders were drawn, before empires were named, and before the world decided who was worthy of respect. The brilliance of black civilizations, the depth of their spiritual insight, and the complexity of their societies came from something divine, a purposeful design placed within them from the moment they were created. It wasn't a coincidence that the earliest forms of human intelligence, organization, medicine, architecture, and philosophy came out of Africa. It was the fulfillment of a plan that had been in motion since the very beginning of humanity. Look at the way black ancestors observed the stars and aligned pyramids with celestial patterns long before telescopes were invented. Look at how they used advanced mathematics, developed intricate legal systems, built irrigation for massive farmlands, and organized cities with detailed infrastructure while other parts of the world were still nomadic. These achievements were not flukes. They were reflections of minds awakened by purpose and guided by an inner wisdom that modern systems still study and marvel at. The legacy of ancient African civilizations like Nubia, Kemet, and Mali is undeniable. These cultures not only thrived, they set the foundation for global development. And behind those achievements were black people, innovators, thinkers, leaders, and spiritual guides carrying something sacred within them. But what's more powerful than the inventions and monuments is the spirit behind them. The heart of black greatness has always been deeply connected to the divine. Their way of life was built around harmony with nature, community responsibility, spiritual accountability, and a clear understanding that life was more than physical survival. It was about soul purpose. Their music wasn't just rhythm, it was healing. Their stories weren't just entertainment, they were coded truth. Their traditions weren't just rituals, they were expressions of eternal wisdom. They lived with a sense of something greater flowing through them, something that wasn't taught in textbooks but passed down in the spirit, in the breath, in the beat of the drum. This divine foundation is why black people could endure what others couldn't imagine. Because even when stripped of their land, their language, their culture, and their names, they were never stripped of their essence. That greatness, the one rooted in God's design, was too deeply planted to be uprooted by force. It lay quietly beneath generations of injustice, waiting for a time when the world would start to wake up and realize that what had been buried was not broken, it was preserved. It didn't die, it was simply covered until the appointed moment when it would rise again, stronger and clearer than before. The attempt to erase black brilliance didn't begin in slavery. It started long before through subtle rewriting of history and calculated erasure of Africa's global contributions. Entire nations were taught that Africa was dark, primitive, and void of worth, not because it was true, but because the truth was too powerful. If people truly understood who black people were, where they came from, and what they were capable of, it would shift the balance of how the world sees strength, leadership, and wisdom. So that truth was hidden, distorted, and stolen. But truth always finds its way back. It may take time, but it never stays buried forever. And now it is returning, not just through history books, but through the awakening of a people who are starting to see themselves again. This realization is not about glorifying one group over another. It's about restoring what was taken. It's about giving voice to a greatness that was silenced and reminding the world that black excellence is not a modern invention. It is an ancient divine reality. When a people carry greatness in their DNA, it doesn't need to be manufactured. It simply needs to be remembered. That's what we're witnessing now. Black people around the world are remembering. They're looking into their reflection and seeing royalty, wisdom, and divine power, not because anyone told them so, but because the truth is waking up inside them. No longer dependent on outside validation, this new generation is standing taller, speaking louder, and walking with a sacred awareness. They are not asking for permission to be great. They are reclaiming what was always theirs. And in doing so, they are unlocking something for all of humanity. Because when a people who were once made to feel like nothing rediscover they were created to be something, that shift doesn't just change them, it changes the world. What was once hidden is now visible. What was once denied is now undeniable. And what was once called a coincidence is now known for what it truly is, a divine calling fulfilled in full view of the world. They were never meant to be in the background of history. They were never created to walk in silence while others dictated their identity. From the very beginning, there was a light placed within them that could not be dimmed. Not by oppression, not by violence, and not by the ignorance of those who refused to see it. Black people were crafted with precision, endowed with a divine assignment that extended far beyond survival. That purpose was to lead, to elevate, to shine in a world often too blinded by its own prejudice to recognize true brilliance. But the time has come for that light to shine without apology. The truth of their identity is not a secret to be hidden. It is a legacy to be lived with boldness. For too long, the world has tried to distort the narrative. It has painted false pictures, erased sacred stories, and twisted the image of blackness into something to be feared, pitied, or controlled. These were not just cultural missteps. They were calculated attempts to strip power away from a people destined to lead. But truth has a way of breaking through the cracks. It doesn't vanish just because it's ignored. It waits, quietly burning in the soul, until it is strong enough to rise again. And now that moment has come. Now a new generation is rising, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with shame, but with certainty. Not looking for validation, but walking with conviction. They are no longer asking for space. They are claiming what was always theirs by divine right. It takes courage to unlearn the lies you were raised in. It takes strength to speak your name in a world that's tried to rename you. But that's the journey of the chosen. They're not called to blend in, they're called to stand out. And black people were never designed to shrink to fit the world's broken perception. They were designed to expand, to elevate, to bring change wherever their feet touch the ground. They carry something in their blood that systems couldn't erase and generations couldn't forget. It is not just culture, it is calling. It is not just heritage. It is a holy blueprint that continues to unfold through every child born into that lineage. This reclamation of identity isn't about ego. It's about alignment. It's about recognizing that the world suffers when black voices are silenced, when black ideas are ignored, and when black presence is pushed to the margins. Greatness was always in them, waiting to be activated. Their voices were never too loud. Their dreams were never too big. Their confidence was never misplaced. The problem was never their identity. It was the world's refusal to honor it. But what once was hidden in the shadows is now rising into full light. And as that identity is reclaimed, it is not just restored, it is empowered. Because when a people know who they are, they move differently. They speak with purpose. They walk with destiny. They build with vision. There is a reason the world tried so hard to keep black identity distorted. Because when that identity is clear, when that truth is embraced, it becomes unstoppable. No amount of historical revision, media misrepresentation, or systemic injustice can hold down a people who remember who they are. The restoration of identity isn't just about dignity, it's about dominion. It's about reclaiming space not just in the world, but in the mind, in the heart, and in the soul. And when that space is filled with the knowledge of who they truly are, kings, queens, inventors, leaders, warriors, and visionaries, the world has no choice but to shift in response. This isn't about rewriting history. It's about telling the parts that were deliberately left out. It's about teaching truth where lies were planted. It's about honoring what was once devalued. And more than that, it's about living differently because of it. Because knowing who you are means no longer settling for less than what you were created to do. It means walking into rooms that once rejected you and knowing you belong. It means building what was never built for you and understanding that you have the power to do it. It means being unshaken by judgment and unbothered by resistance. Because chosen people don't wait to be seen. They walk in full view of their purpose. Identity is not just about the past, it's about the future. And the future is calling for black people to rise into the fullness of who they are, not based on what the world says, but based on what was written into their very being by God Himself. This is the season for unapologetic purpose, for undeniable presence, and for unwavering faith in what they carry. The time of questioning worth is over. The time of playing small is done. What lies ahead is not just restoration, it is revelation. And the world will witness what happens when a people remember their divine assignment and begin to walk in it with boldness, with beauty, and with unshakable belief. Every moment of strength displayed by black people throughout history was never just about surviving oppression. It was about paving the way for those who would come after. Each act of resilience was a signal, a message to the future that said, you are not powerless. You come from a lineage of greatness. This power wasn't something earned through struggle. It was something that was always there, something embedded in their identity from the beginning. That sense of purpose did not start in modern times. It began long before current generations were born. Black people were born chosen, not because of status or wealth, but because they carried within them a divine responsibility to lead, to heal, and to inspire. That is the legacy being passed on, not a legacy of pain, but a legacy of strength and direction. Black youth need to understand they are not trying to become something great. They are the continuation of something great. Their greatness is inherited, not imagined. It's seen in the way their ancestors built empires with their bare hands, governed with wisdom, and lived with dignity, even when stripped of their freedoms. It's in the rhythm of the music they create, in the innovation of their thoughts, and in the depth of their emotional and spiritual insight. These gifts are not random. They are rooted in a divine design that calls them to rise above limits, to challenge injustice, and to walk in their true identity. Their creativity, their ambition, and even their pain all speak to a story that is still being written, one that does not begin with suffering but with sacred value. There is something sacred about understanding your origin. It changes how you walk, how you speak, how you carry yourself. Black youth must know that they were not born into a story of defeat, but into a calling of influence. They were born to shape culture, to set trends, to create systems, and to leave a mark that generations will study and admire. The systems of the world might try to convince them otherwise, but when they look deeper, when they truly reflect on who they are and where they come from, they will find truth that no oppression could erase. They will see that their ancestors didn't just survive. They overcame, they triumphed, and they left behind a blueprint for victory. That victory is not just in history books. It's in their DNA. It's in the fire they feel when told they can't. It's in the dreams they chase, even when the odds are stacked against them. That's not arrogance. It's remembrance. It's their soul recognizing that they are meant for more, and they are. Black children, teens, and young adults across the globe are waking up to the truth that their potential is not limited by their surroundings, but unleashed when they embrace their identity. This is not about comparing with others. It's about fully owning the unique light they bring into this world. There is a reason the world watches when black voices rise. There's a reason the energy shifts when black people unite. It's not just charisma or influence, it's destiny. It's the manifestation of a people chosen to illuminate, to teach, and to restore balance in a world that's often lost its way. Their history proves it. Their creativity confirms it. Their perseverance reinforces it. But most importantly, their spirit declares it. The time has come to stop questioning it and start walking in it. The responsibility that comes with being chosen is not always easy. It means pushing through challenges that others don't face. It means holding yourself to a higher standard, not for the sake of others' approval, but because you know what lives inside you. You were never meant to blend into the background. You were meant to lead, and leadership doesn't start with popularity. It starts with purpose. It starts with vision. It starts with knowing who you are and what you're capable of, even when the world tries to distract you from that truth. So the message to every young black person is this: you don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need confirmation from outside voices. Everything you need to walk in greatness is already in you. Your presence matters. Your ideas matter. Your dreams are not too big. They are right on time. You are not becoming powerful. You were born powerful. You were born chosen, not to just succeed for yourself, but to be a light for others, to inspire those who think they are forgotten, and to build something that will last far beyond your own lifetime. This generation carries more than potential. It carries prophecy. It carries fulfillment. It carries the energy of those who came before and the promise of those who will come after. Each decision made in truth, each step taken in purpose, and each voice lifted in power pushes this story forward. And what a powerful story it is. Not one of defeat, but of destiny. Not one of struggle alone, but of victory through divine design. You were always meant to lead. You were always meant to rise. Now is the time to believe it, live it, and pass it forward.